Hey guys, welcome back to this channel. Now, this video is a slight bait and switch. I've reeled you in with a catchy headline and a catchy thumbnail about how you can 100x your crypto portfolio, even if it's small. And it is a little bit of a bait and switch, but not entirely. You see, in this video, this is going to come in two parts. First, I'm going to teach you the most important thing above anything, and that is how to not lose your money in crypto in the long term, which unfortunately is the default for most new investors. And if you've got a small stack, I can only assume that you're relatively new in the game. So I've been in the game for a very long time, since 2017, which in Bitcoin years is like decades. And I'm here to tell you that the hardest thing to do in this market is to not lose your money. And I'm going to give you some tips on how to keep your money so you can play the long game. And the second half of this is to how to actually be able to play the long game so you can make money. Now, the bait and switch is that the thumbnail is correct. Like, you can actually take $1,000 and turn it into $100,000. But it is actually going to be over a long period of time. Now, first, let's get into it. Now, if you've made it this far, and you're actually getting to Bitcoin, you're already doing the right thing. Because I think there's a force in this world, we'll just call it a nebulous force that is opaque. It's not really sure it's not clear exactly where it's coming from. But it is a force that wants to make you poor and take everything that you have. And one of the tools of this force is the Federal Reserve System, or the central banking system that exists in every country in the world, and it is what's responsible for the true cause of inflation, and that is why Bitcoin exists. Now, if you've gotten into Bitcoin, that's really all you need to have in order to be able to make life-changing amounts of wealth. But on your journey of being involved in this crypto world, you're going to be tempted to get into things that are outperforming Bitcoin. And it's a little funny because if you think about it, Bitcoin's the greatest performing asset of all time, and it's likely to continue in that direction, yet there's a temptation to find things that are going to outpace Bitcoin. That's where we get into meme coins, altcoins, all the different money-making schemes that you can get into when you get involved in crypto. And perhaps when you came to this video, you were expecting that I had some kind of altcoin gem or some kind of like fast money-making strategy. And this is where I'm going to pull the rug out from underneath your feet. And I'm going to first convince you that taking the fast way is in fact not just the wrong way, it's the fastest way to lose your money. So this is applying for not just meme coins, but I mean any of the different money making methods. And I'm not talking about business, because like if you check out my channel, I've got a lot of crypto businesses that you can get involved in, but business and investment, I'm drawing a line between the two. If you're just involved in, the investing aspect of it, this is what I'm talking about right now. So what you can see here in this video, this is a video I made a little while back, and ignore the title because, I mean, it's not certain that will play out. Maybe meme coins do well, maybe they don't play out. I've got a mixed opinion about altcoins, whether or not they're going to perform well. But if you're watching this video, I'm going to assume that you're probably new and you've got a small stack, and I'm going to first try and convince you not to throw all of your money into some altcoin. And what you can see in this chart here, let me zoom in a little bit for you, is you've got a system where the altcoins are passed down on through to retail. Now, if you've got into Bitcoin or cryptocurrency at large, there's a very good chance that someone has recommended that you should make some kind of investment into some altcoin that will hopefully outperform Bitcoin, and you can become like a Bitcoin millionaire, which you've probably heard about. You've probably heard some guy making a bunch of money in crypto simply because he bought some coin low and it went high. You want to replicate that success, and let me here to burst that bubble and tell you why it's not going to happen. Now, there was a time where this could have potentially happened, right? You could have been at the right place at the right time, bought the right thing, sold at the right time, and not made mistakes. But the chances of that happening were very low. It's very easy to say in retrospect that you would have bought Dogecoin when it was like 1/1,000,000th of a cent. But the chances that you knew that was going to happen to Dogecoin was almost impossible. And I want to give you a bit of let's go have a blast from the past. So this is a snapshot of all the different coins that existed back in 2014. Number one is Bitcoin, and it's been that way since. So then what's number two here? Litecoin, then 3 XRP, Peercoin, Nextcoin, Omni, Doge, blah, 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 blah. Now, of the top 10, you could probably recognize just a few of these outside of Bitcoin. You've got Litecoin, Ripple, Dogecoin, but look at all the others. Now, if you were looking at which one was going to perform and which one wasn't, you would have absolutely no way of doing so. What you could do is you could read the white paper of these crypto operations. You know, you could try get a gauge on how much money each project is making. But outside of the white paper, because most things were basically just vaporware, you know, that was just a white paper that existed, people were just betting on an idea, there was absolutely no way that you would have been able to determine the Dogecoin and Ripple would have been the only ones that would have been worthwhile investing in outside of Bitcoin. So outside of Bitcoin, only 2 out of 9 of these coins would actually go on to outperform Bitcoin, right? So the chances that you would have been able to do it would have been really low. And here's the thing, that's in the top 10. What about like the next, from the 10 to 20, right? Let's have a look. Let's see how many names you recognize. Prime Coin, WorldCoin, Megacoin, Infinite Coin, Feathercoin, Novacoin, Tickets, Devcoin. I have not heard of any of these things. All the ones on my page going up to 24, because none of these coins are relevant anymore and they've all crashed and burned. And if I go further and further, there's absolutely none of these. In fact, in the whole top 100, basically none of them exist in any, they have no relevance at all anymore. Anyone that invested in these coins have lost all their money. So pretty much everything besides Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ripple, and Dogecoin have survived, right? And only Ripple and Dogecoin have made it. So the idea that you would have just chanced upon just knowing what the right bet to make was is impossible. There's no way you could have known to buy it. And by the way, hold it for all that time. Like the amount of people that have bought and held onto Dogecoin since 2014 up until now there's almost nobody. There's so few people that have done it. It's probably like the amount, you could probably count them on one hand, the people that had the foresight to invest in Dogecoin, and it would have been a huge risk, right? These are the same kind of people that would have just chucked a bet on Namecoin, right? And if we go a bit into the future, we can look into 2017, where it's a bit closer to our time frame. Ethereum had come out, so there was a proliferation of ERC20 tokens, and the alt coins had really proliferated and become what it is now. And the altcoins would survive longer than they would. But still, if we look at the top 10, a lot of these are name brand coins. Like most of these you probably know. But if we actually think about it, how many of these have outperformed Bitcoin? Well, Ethereum has generally outperformed Bitcoin. Generally, like it's not, from 700 to it's like 3.5K now. It's done okay. It's outperformed Bitcoin slightly. Ripple, let me think. I mean, what is Ripple now? I mean, Ripple is like $3. So yeah, it's outperformed. No, it actually hasn't really outperformed Bitcoin. Bitcoin did a 5x. Ripple from like these all-time highs at the time of 70 cents. Now it's $3. So if my maths is correct, the Bitcoin has actually outperformed Ripple since then. Bitcoin has outperformed Litecoin. Litecoin is what, like $200 or something. Bitcoin has outperformed Cardano. It's outperformed IOTA, Dash, NEM. And of all of these, like NEM and Dash are basically, and IOTA, these aren't even in the top 100 anymore, right? So if you invested in these at all, you would have gotten wrecked, right? So 6 out of these 9 coins have basically survived, but they have underperformed compared to Bitcoin. Ethereum has only just slightly edged out, but we can see that that's turning around. And then if we go 10 to 20, what do we see here? Bitcoin, Gold, Stellar, EOS, Neo, Ethereum, Classic, Tron, Quantum, yada, 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 yada. Now, all of the ones that you see here that have survived, which is a minority, I can point them out right now, Tron and Stellar and Ethereum Classic are the only ones that have survived, but even still, they've massively underperformed compared to Bitcoin. Let's go again back into 2021. So Bitcoin is at 60K. But look at Ethereum at 4.2K, Binance Coin $600, Solana $230. I mean, it almost looks the same as what it is now. Like Ethereum is like less than what it is back then. Binance Coin is roughly the same. Solana is roughly the same. Cardano roughly the same. XRP has done well. XRP is outperformed Bitcoin. But the point that I'm trying to make is that the chances of you being able to successfully outperform Bitcoin over the long term are very, very low to almost impossible. If you try to make a bet on an altcoin, there's a good chance that it won't be around in 10 years. Or if it is still around, it just isn't going to outperform Bitcoin. And just as an anecdotal thing, I've been around a lot of very wealthy crypto people. Generally speaking, almost all of them are Bitcoin maxis. Now, that could be the circles that I run in. That's fair enough. But, all the people that I know that made a ton of money in altcoins, that ended up losing it all because it's not sustainable in the long run. And the other thing about these coins is that, you have to, if you're going to have enough conviction to invest and hold one of these coins, you have to have a lot of domain knowledge about what that coin does. You're going to have to spend a lot of time being updated on the new technology of that coin, all the updates of it. You want to know how much money it makes, what it actually provides to the ecosystem. You need to know how it interacts with the overall crypto ecosystem in general, and that requires a lot of work. And the thing is, the crypto industry, it's so volatile and changes so quickly. You can find that unless you're paying attention all the time and you're chronically online on crypto Twitter, the chances of you being able to know exactly when to buy and when to sell is almost, it's a pointless and futile exercise. You're not going to be able to keep up unless you do this full time, and even then, results may vary, right? So I just wanted to make this other point as well, just to increase your sense of futility when it comes to investing and stuff, right? So how it works is when you get into an altcoin, you've got to understand how the tokenomics work. So this is a funnel, right? So when the coin is first made, before it's made, we'll just take any altcoin. It doesn't matter which one. Ones that have been made after 2017, roughly speaking, unless they're a meme coin or whatever, if they're a tech token, as you call them, it's got a very unfair launch, right? So the token founders, before they've even released the token, they say, hey, look, when we do release this token, we're going to keep 20% of it. That's going to allow us to get paid for the work that we've done. That's going to keep the lights on. That's going to allow us to pay for stuff. And everyone might say, well, that's a fair enough agreement. Then the VCs come in and they say, hey, do you want some starting capital because your token's not worth anything? Let us help you pay for office space and tech support and development. Here's a couple of $1 million. Just give us 10% of the tokens when it releases, right? Angel investors come in a bit later and do the same thing. And then centralized exchanges, like Binance, Bybit, whatever, once a token is released, these tokens don't really have any way of being accessed by the public. So their goal is to go onto centralized exchanges, but centralized exchanges, don't have any need to just buy tons of some random token they've never heard of before. So often these tokens are given to centralized exchanges roughly for free. And they might get, 5% of the supply, 10% of the supply, and then it is then being, sold more or less, right? And then it's not necessarily the crypto exchanges sell all the tokens they have, but, that's, they get a bunch of it, and probably they are going to sell at least a good chunk of it over time. Then we've got market makers. Then you've got Twitter KOLs. So KOLs are the people that are paid to promote the token. So they might be promised 1% of the token supply if they're a big KOL. Telegram callers, YouTubers is the same as KOL, CT traders, it's copy traders, whatever. The scalpers, the snipers, whatever. And then after all of this, then you've got retail exit liquidity. So by the time you find out about the greatest token and your Uber driver has told you about it, your grandma has told you about it during Thanksgiving, by then everyone has had their fill. Everyone on this list has had their fill, and you're getting the remnants. So by the time you get around to it, the token's already $100 million market cap. It's already $1 billion market cap. And all those people higher up in the food chain, they're selling on you. And you're going to get dumped on, and you're going to have no idea what's going to come. It's essentially a legal rug pull, and it's just considered a normal part of the process. Although it's very unfair, this is simply how it works. Now, let's just say it doesn't rug pull. Maybe the price continues to go up and you're happy with it. Just remember that there are people who have gotten in at when the coin was 1 cent or less than $10 million market cap, and they own 5% of the supply, and they are already a 10,000x in profit. All it takes is for them to sell it, you know, buy a mansion, buy a Lamborghini, and everyone who is still holding on to that coin is going to get wrecked. This is why I'm not a fan of altcoins in general. If you want to hold them for like a few months or something, do a little quick, take advantage of a little pump, I can understand the temptation to do that. I do that from time to time, but as a general rule of thumb, you don't want to be holding these things for a time, because the nature of trading altcoins is very predatory, and everyone is being roped into this idea that they can become like the millionaire next door, or a guy who knows a guy who made $1 million in crypto. Everyone wants to be like that guy, not realizing that for every guy that does that, there's like 1,000 people who've just gotten absolutely wrecked trading altcoins, right? So that's part one of this video. Do not get involved in altcoins. Don't take the easy way out. Don't try and skip the process. The process is much faster than a lot of other ways of making money, but it's a lot slower than this. Like, you have to take the longer route. Bitcoin is, as I mentioned, one of the greatest performing assets of all time, and is probably going to continue to be so for the next following decades. If you just buy Bitcoin and you wait like 10 years, the chances of your money having gone a 10 or maybe even a 50x are pretty likely. You can become a Bitcoin millionaire, but it is going to require, discipline. It's going to require you just having conviction in what you're holding, and it's also going to require you to take the long game. Like, you just DCA, that means dollar cost average. You set a certain amount of money that you're going to put into Bitcoin every week or every month, and you're just going to continue doing so, for the rest of your life, perhaps. And you just hold it, you put it into cold storage, you don't trade it for anything else, you don't try and take advantage of pumps or dumps, you hold through the bear cycles, you hold through the bull cycles, maybe taking some profit here and there, but ultimately you're playing the long game, and ultimately you get rewarded. Now, for those that I've perhaps demoralized with my rant about how you can't make money quickly, because, maybe you've got a small stack and you think, Bitcoin's already $100,000. Like, what can I do? I've only got like $1,000. I've only got $500. Well, I'm going to give you like a reasonable goal to achieve, and that is to get at least 0.1 Bitcoin. And even if you weren't able to get that, that's okay. Just follow along with this thought experiment, right? So everyone, a lot of people, because my mom hangs around with a bunch of old people, they don't know much about Bitcoin, and they'll ask me, and they'll say, what's the price of Bitcoin now? I'll say it's 100K, and they say, well, I don't have 100K, right? But it's just, that's not really how it works. You don't have to own one whole Bitcoin. That's actually a lot of money. And as we go on into the future, people will be talking about 0.1 Bitcoin. Like, in the future, people will say, oh man, like, Bitcoin's too expensive. I can't afford to buy 0.1 Bitcoin. That will eventually become the great marker of wealth. Here's why. So there are only 21 million coins, placing you amongst the wealthiest 200 million people globally. So this is like if you own 0.1 Bitcoin, and this is if, Bitcoin gets to where it's prophesized to be, where you've got total Bitcoinization. You can go down to Starbucks and buy a latte with Bitcoin. When you get to that stage, when we get to that, you're basically in the top 2.63% in terms of global wealth, right? Now, with 4 million Bitcoin lost forever, you're actually in the 2.13%. So he's basing this on the fact that there's 2.21 million coins. There's already 4 million that have lost. And over time, Bitcoin's going to be deflationary. You're not going to be able to mine more, and there's only more people that are going to be losing their Bitcoin, because they've lost the USB, something like that. Like all the large wallets, they got a bunch of random Bitcoin back in 2009. A lot of that money is gone. Like, most people don't know how to access those wallets. So the point is, let's just go back to the example. Don't want to make this too convoluted, but you're basically going to be in the top 2.13% of wealth if you own just 0.1% of Bitcoin, right? But here's the kicker. Some own more than 0.1 Bitcoin. Only 4.5 million addresses hold more than 0.1 Bitcoin, putting you in the top 0.56%. So if you own 0.1 Bitcoin, it might not seem like a lot now, but by the time we get to total Bitcoinization, you're actually going to be like one of the wealthiest people in the world, because only so many people can own 0.1 Bitcoin. Right now, it doesn't seem like a lot, but just remember, there was a time where owning 0.1 Bitcoin was basically nothing, So as time goes on, 0.1 Bitcoin is actually going to be worth a lot. I just think that people have psyched themselves out because $1 million has always been like this prophesized target, you know. Well, $100,000 was for sure, but $1 million was kind of one of those things where people would talk about it like years ago, and it seemed like such a far off thing. And we're actually now staring down the scope of $1 million Bitcoin. I don't know if it's going to be this cycle. I don't know if it's going to be 2 years from now, 3 years from now, or the next cycle. But most people no longer believe that $1 million Bitcoin is like really far off. So a lot of you holding 0.1 Bitcoin, you're thinking like, oh, like what's like, this isn't, you know, like by the time it gets to $1 million, that's going to be it. But that's where you're wrong. So the next white pill I have for you is this. Now, this is shared around a lot. People may have some legitimate arguments as to why this is not technically accurate, but it is mostly accurate. Now, the Bitcoin total market cap is actually $2 trillion, so this graph is a little behind. But if we take it on its face value, it's a very small asset class compared to the others. Now, gold is often compared to Bitcoin because, you know, like me, for instance, I was a massive precious metals bug before I got into Bitcoin because of, you know, Ron Paul, Austrian economics, that kind of stuff. There was a very strong funnel for people like myself to get into Bitcoin. And the reason why is because that Bitcoin solves a lot of the problems that gold is trying to solve in regards to runaway fiat inflation, except it's better because you can actually transact with Bitcoin and you can't really transact with gold. So gold was always seen as the first kind of rival of Bitcoin that Bitcoin is destined to overcome. And if you believe that is going to be the case, then what is going to happen when Bitcoin overtakes the market cap of gold? Once it gets to $17 trillion in market cap, Bitcoin will be worth $2.5 million, right? And now I don't believe that that is a far off expectation that one day Bitcoin will subsume the market cap of gold, just because more and more people are coming to realize that gold is just inferior to Bitcoin in so many different ways. And then also is, you know, art is a really big asset class, which is meant to be a preserver of wealth. It's worth $18 trillion. Bitcoin, I think, will easily be worth more than art. And when it comes to fiat, this is just the US, by the way, there's $120 trillion in fiat in America. The question is, could Bitcoin basically take that market share? And I think that's happening before our eyes. Now, not necessarily just Bitcoin, but if you look at crypto as a whole, how much global trade is happening in USDT right now? And believe me, it's way more than you think, because I live in this world. I live in the world of peer-to-peer trading. Personally, I'm pretty much living in Bitcoin already. I do all my transactions. I buy things online. I trade things. I sell things. I pay my employees in Bitcoin. I do everything in Bitcoin. Already, I can live a life that's relatively without fiat, you know, with some exceptions. We already live in a world where Bitcoinization is here. It's only just a matter of time before more and more people escape the runaway crashing train that is fiat. And they're going to go into something else. Maybe it's gold, but most likely it's going to be Bitcoin. So we've already got situations where, you know, there's places where you can go and you can buy things with Bitcoin. And I think over time, that's just going to be more and more and more until eventually you can get to that point that I mentioned before. The point of total Bitcoinization is when you can go to Starbucks and buy, you know, a latte with Bitcoin. I don't think that that's far off. By the time you get that, the Bitcoin market cap is going to equal fiat, the fiat market cap, which is $120 trillion. And many of you might say the argument, well, you know, fiat isn't going to totally go away, for which I will agree with it. I don't think it's going to completely decimate the US dollar. I think the US dollar is probably going to be around. I think Bitcoin and the US dollar will like coexist with each other. But think about the world, right? Not just the US dollar. What if like Bitcoin takes like 30% of the market share of the US dollar fiat in America, and maybe like, you know, 10% in Russia, like 10% in all the African countries, 10% in Oceania, 20% here, 10% there, 30% there, maybe 100% in some countries, right? It's not unbelievable to think that Bitcoin could get to $100 trillion market cap because it's being used as a replacement for fiat, right? And, you know, we can go into how this Bitcoin could go into the global debt markets. You know, people could be, you know, selling debt in Bitcoin. They're doing loans in Bitcoin. It could, people might be starting to get into the real estate market with Bitcoin. Bitcoin might be used to, buy houses, buy property development. It could be used to do stocks. So theoretically, if you believe in the prophecy of Bitcoin, which is that it's going to become the apex utility currency, which everything will be measured by, once it gets to that stage, then Bitcoin is basically going to be worth all of these things combined. And I'm not even going to bother calculating it, but it's a insurmountable number. And this isn't going to be something that happens in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. It's probably going to be a generational thing, And this is something where it's like, if you're serious about Bitcoin, you'll get as much as you can now and then pass it down to your kids in expectation that Bitcoin is going to continue changing the world over the next century. Now, this is quite a contrast to trying to make money within one cycle and, trying to get as much as you can, hoping to 10x this cycle. The reality is you could 100x or 1000x if you consider the fact that if you hold Bitcoin for the next 40 years that you're alive, then you pass it off to your children, and then maybe they even pass it off to their grandchildren. Who knows exactly how it's going to work, but the chances are, with just 0.1 Bitcoin, you basically made it. If you extend your time horizon to 10 to 20 years, you'll pretty much make it. Even 0.01%, 0.01 Bitcoin, people will be envious of you if you even have that. And I want to talk about another factor as well that will make it more simple to get to, $1 million or whatever, in your own portfolio. If you're going from $1,000 to $100,000 or $1 million, another factor to take into account is if you're simply just in Bitcoin in general and you're avoiding inflation, that is going to kind of be burning the candles at both ends. So on one hand, you've got massive demand for this new exciting asset that people are buying into. That's pumping the price. But on the other end of the candle, you've got the dollar being increasingly worthless. Now, this is something that probably doesn't excite you as much as the first thing I mentioned, but the reality is, just take this for instance, $1 in 1913 is worth $31 today. So eventually, being a millionaire will be relatively simple because we're going into Zimbabwe territory and everyone's going to be a millionaire soon, right? And on the one hand, that's a joke. But on the other hand, that's also just a warning of if you don't get into Bitcoin, you're going to be a millionaire and that's not in a good way. Because you'll need $2 million to buy bread eventually, right? So I think that's all I really want to say. Oh wait, there's just one more little statistic here, just as a thought experiment. If Bitcoin got to the market cap of 100 trillion, which is roughly the market cap of the cash supply in the US, Bitcoin price would be around almost $5 million. So I don't think Bitcoin taking over gold or Bitcoin taking over cash are really wildly predictions to make. I think these things could easily happen within our lifetimes. I think Bitcoin is going to overtake gold within the next decade, half decade probably. Cash, who knows, maybe 20, 30 years, probably less. I'm overestimating these things because I just don't want to seem kooky. The reality is I believe it's probably a lot less than that. But yeah, you can do extremely well. And just on a final note, I made a video that was a tier list of all the best ways to make money in in crypto, right? And I have all these great business ideas. I'm involved in different businesses in crypto. You can make good money, but at the end of the day, the S tier of there were a number of S tier things you could do to make money in crypto. But one of the S tier ones was simply just buying Bitcoin and shutting up. Just buy Bitcoin and shut up for 10 years, and it's going to be one of the best things you could do. It's going to outdo all of these other business activities that I recommend, although I do recommend them. It's just holding Bitcoin is better. Now, guys, thanks a lot for watching this video. If you want to buy Bitcoin without KYC, you can use my referral link in the description down below for HODL and Local CoinSwap. These are two exchanges that you can use to buy and sell crypto without providing any personal information whatsoever. You can use a burner email to sign up. You don't even have to use a phone number to sign up. Just go on and you can use any payment method you can think of to buy and sell Bitcoin. You can use TransferWise, Revolut, etc., Cash. You can do all these things. So make sure to use my referral link in the description down below, and I'll see you next time.